So, for those of you not aware, I did get rid of my Patreon, and there were a couple of reasons. For one, and the reason it hasn't gone on like a main channel video is because there it looks to be legal repercussions for bringing this stuff up. Patreon doesn't exactly like you throwing out accusations or accusing them of being lax with certain things. But let me just put it here. It came to my attention that there's a ton of people on like Instagram, for example, who post videos and pictures of their underage children, and they're all clothed in like bikini swim trunks. Like these are 8-9-year-old girls, okay, little girls and little boys, dressed in swimsuits and stuff. And they post all these pictures of them, and they say channel and pages are supervised by mom, love, hearts, whatever. And then they have a link to a Patreon page where you can subscribe for like $5 a month, and then you get more pictures of the children in, let's just say, revealing clothing. And like, this is a well-known thing. There's lots of pages on Instagram that happens. Like they do this all the time. Several people called Patreon out for this, and Patreon said, "Oh, we actively work to remove inappropriate content. To suggest we don't is not acceptable, blah, blah, blah." Those pages are still up. And like, even if there's like, even if the pictures are not illegal and just feature, it's just a collection of hundreds of pictures of little girls and boys, I still find that remarkably unacceptable to be on your platform. Like, it doesn't take a genius to figure out who's subscribing to that Patreon for $5 a month, the type of person that's subbing to that, Like, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. So I find it extremely uncomfortable, and I don't want to contribute to a company that actively platforms and supports that. I understand legally they're probably rock solid and protected. They have every like T crossed and I dotted, but there's been a series of things like that. There were also like, there was the report or the review on Glassdoor where anybody, to be fair, can go on and claim to be an employee. But there were people on that Glassdoor site that claimed to previously work for the security team, work on Patreon's payroll, and that they, before they left and were downsized, they had been told that they couldn't go in and proactively remove that content. They had to wait until there was like a legal requirement to remove that content. So the whole thing just kind of stunk. Maybe that's not the truth. Maybe they, like, this person was faking being an employee of Patreon for some reason. I don't know why they do it, but maybe. Either way, like, where there's smoke, there's fire. And for me, I look at that and I just find it remarkably uncomfortable. And now that I've seen it and I see these other like TikTokers will pull it up and like, what the hell is with this Instagram account that just has pictures of little kids and then links to a Patreon where they're accepting like tens of thousands of dollars for pictures of their children, and like they allow perks where like you can pay extra and then the kid will perform a dance for the patron, stuff like that. That's just freaking creepy as hell. So I'm just uncomfortable with it, and I don't want to be anywhere near that. How big are these communities? The Instagram pages have like 75, 85, 150,000 followers. It's like remarkably upsetting. It goes back to this has been a thing, pedophilia and these types of things has been a big issue for decades. I mean, all of history, really. And it's just such a horrible issue. Nobody wants to think about it or acknowledge it. And so nothing ever really is settled with it. And I mean, it's even like when there's credible accusations against somebody like Michael Jackson, people don't really want to think about it because it's just so horrible. You don't want to think anybody would do that, but you shut it down and you just choose to accept that it's not real because it's more comfortable that way. But it is a real thing, and it does happen, and it's a big problem. And I don't want to have anything to do with a company that's even slightly like, regardless of how you look at it, Patreon is being used to enrich alleged parents who are using their children as like quick cash grabs. So I just don't want to be on a platform that also enriches pervs and creeps. The other piece of it too is that Patreon has always been sort of strange for me. I feel like when you set up a Patreon and you start taking money from viewers and kind of e-begging in that way, especially on a subscription level, you then are obligated and you have to maintain a certain, I don't know, rapport or like, I don't know, I like, for example, like we never made a ton of money off the Patreon, maybe like $600 a month. It's decent. Back in the day, that was enough to cover my rent. Nowadays, that's like a third or a quarter of my rent, you know, so it's not as big of a deal as it used to be. But back in the day, it was a huge deal. But what it does is like, I get that $600 a month from Patreon. I then feel guilty whenever I do like anything to try and update the studio or tweak stuff, because in the back of my mind, I'm like, is this the best way I could be spending like the $600 that these people have donated and pledged to me? So it just makes me feel really uncomfortable. And I am of course very thankful to the patrons, but I would like rather they keep their money, especially because now I'm at a point where it's not a huge chunk of my monthly income. I can live without it. I would rather people keep their money. And if they want to like become a member on this channel and like, if you want to throw donations and stuff, I'm not going to stop you, but like never feel obligated to. The great thing about YouTube is that you can watch the content for free and I can still make a living, you know, that's an amazing thing. Like it's great. So I would rather, instead of just e-begging and being that guy, I would rather just throw myself at the mercy of the algorithm and just do what I want to do and not have this constant nagging of like, you know, is this what the patrons need or want? Because I never had issues with that. Like Brennan's saying, becomes pretty parasocial. Joseph Anderson's Patreon quickly became a finish your Witcher 3 video now or I will kill you platform. And yeah, and I never had to deal with anything on that level. My patrons were always extremely chill and cool. Joseph Anderson's kind of a special example because he was taking in like tens of thousands of dollars and like saying he was going to make this Witcher video. And that was like 4 years ago. So I get it. I get why they might have felt like their money was just kind of burning. I think he shut it. Didn't he shut his Patreon down? I think he shut it down. Because that type of thing was happening. And so he's like, I'm just not comfortable with it. And that's where I'm at. I'm like, the company is really weird. They platform weird people. They enrich people that I think should be deplatformed and gotten rid of. Like those creepy moms who are providing videos of their children, you know, things like that. So that's it. And then it also, I just think at this point, we've somewhat outgrown it. Maybe the day will come when we go back to it to fundraise for something. Who knows? But it's always made me a little bit uncomfortable. And so I'd rather just not deal with it. You could say anything about the same thing about any online platform, especially 18+ version of Patreon that shall not be named. Freelancing has definitely changed how we view personal finances. With ONF, like you have to demonstrate, from what I've been told, of course I haven't set one up, but my understanding is if you want to post something, you have to provide like a copy of a driver's license. You have to prove that everybody that appears in the content is over 18. Patreon, they don't have any verification. They just look at the account holder, and if the account holder is over 18, you're good. And that is an issue because like the kids aren't hopping on and like at 9 years old creating these Patreon pages. It's their parents or guardians or creepy uncles. Like it's not the kid that sets it up. So it's always going to be an adult. The system's just broken over there.